and we're in 13 countries in Africa, and we have our lovely members from the Netherlands as well. We actually have probably about 5 or 6 applications for our General Assembly for new members. We've seen a lot of growth over the last many years. Our work focuses on natural resources and trying to work for more just and sustainable use of natural resources in Africa. And we focus especially on research, community support work, and advocacy. One of the things in the last several years has been IANRA, through its General Assemblies, has actually identified that Pan-African advocacy and also regional advocacy, such as SADC and COMESA, EAC, the East African Community, and ECOWAS, is really important work for us as well. So this project actually was born out of that interest of our members to say, as an African network, we have an opportunity here to come together and try to influence and support and build relationships with Pan-African organizations. Something that's really exciting about IANRA is that it is a continental organization. We're one of the first networks in Africa to work on natural resources, networks of civil society organizations. And as you can imagine, and as we all know, our work is quite difficult. Sometimes we think our work is a little bit crazy because we're trying to achieve things that almost seem impossible. Some of our members are either work with communities affected by extractive industries or other natural resource investments, and we also have community-based organizations working on the same issues. And so even people in this room that are sitting here with us have been arrested for protecting their community from certain investments when they weren't able to give full consent to those operations. I think the gravity of what we do is really important to just take a moment and reflect on, because this is not work that's easy to do, and I think communities especially have their lives on the line in the work that they do, just to work for more human rights, more protection of human rights, and more promotion of community rights. This particular project actually goes through a few activities over a 3-year period, and actually it will continue beyond this 3-year period. The original funding we had was from the EC for 3 years, and that's coming to a close at the end of July. But what that work focused on was, it started with research in communities. So 5 case studies were done in 5 countries. That would include Angola, DRC, Kenya, South Africa, and Zimbabwe. And those case studies focused on the impact of extractive industries on human rights in those communities. And actually, the human rights that we reflected on in those case studies was human rights as protected in the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, which was ratified by the AU heads of state in the 1980s. And it's quite a progressive document that we can use and that the AU bodies can use to actually ensure human rights are protected. So those 5 case studies actually led to a report that was done, which you will get a copy of, that actually identified through the 5 case studies particular problems that were faced by all of those communities. One example could be the use of consultation versus consent with communities when mining activities happen on their land. The idea is that consultation often involves just coming to the community and telling them what's going to happen. In some cases, it involves coercion, where communities are threatened to give consent, to have mining on their land. And the idea is to move more toward consent, free, prior, and informed consent. So that's one of the problems that was identified. Then we actually also did a legal and policy analysis. So an analysis of policies in Africa, as well as particularly looking in those 5 countries at legislative provisions, as well as policies that may have caused problems in relation to human rights violations. So perhaps there's a gap that we identified that needs to be filled in legislation and policy that could better protect human rights for communities and citizens of Africa. Then there was a first principles document that we developed. The first principles actually identifies principles that address the problems that were identified in the case studies. So these principles say, for example, the same example of consultation, one of the principles is free, prior, and informed consent. It comes into these principles. It's very much a people's document that can be used for advocacy, it can be used for mobilization with other NGOs, and it's a sort of a popular document. And then those things actually led into the model law. In the model law, we're addressing especially those principles. So this has been quite a consultative process. Work has been done in many, many different countries to develop the first principles, to get feedback on the first principles. We've done conferences on them, and as well as the model law. And also, even in communities, we've done some consultations to get feedback, as well as with policymakers. I think some of them here have been involved in the process for many years, such as Honorable Kakoba has been involved with his Committee on Justice and Human Rights since 2011. And they've been a really supportive partner in this work that we're doing. Another example would be Professor Ndende, who's been quite supportive, especially in the last year, and others who will be coming will also represent that. So the idea now is actually to launch the model law this week. It's a working document still, so we don't want to think it's all over and everyone has to, this is set in stone. This is still a working document because, as we know, the model law itself, it's an African-wide model law, but it has to be adapted to different contexts. We know that each African country is different, and there might be particular changes that need to be made to each country. So, well, we're incredibly excited. We're really, really excited to see the culmination of 3 years of work to come into this conference, the launch that we'll have tomorrow in a community, and we're actually even doing a training of trainers on after that as well. So I guess that's a bit of background on IANRA and the project, and I think Tafazwa is going to talk about a bit more about our activities and achievements, and she can fill in any gaps that I may have missed. Thanks.
Yeah, talking about this interesting project, very ambitious. We always talk about it in the office and say, well, because the proposal was done before I joined IANRA, so I keep asking whoever did this proposal. I mean, it's lots of work, it's great work, but it's really ambitious, and which is why Aine explained that we're going to have a second phase because we did not manage to finish all we wanted in 3 years. I'm going to talk about the activities and achievements of this project. This project started in 2013 with an inception meeting that was held in Johannesburg, and this meeting was basically introducing the project and sharing the proposal with the project officers in the 5 case study countries that were selected, which Aine mentioned: Angola, DRC, Kenya, South Africa, and Zimbabwe. We started with the inception meeting, and then the research started in the 5 countries that we mentioned: Angola, DRC, Kenya, South Africa, and Zimbabwe. This took a while because the findings were only reported in October 2014 as individual case studies. So each country came up with their own document showing their findings. These case studies were later synthesized. So you will find that we are going to share with you today hard copies as well as soft copies of the case study synthesis, not the individual case studies. Also, like mentioned earlier, we also did a legal and policy analysis for the same countries, which she said this is where we saw the gaps, and most of these gaps were actually allowing for human rights violations. So the synthesis then came up with the identification of challenges in the 5 countries, and 13 problems were identified. These problems informed the development of the first principles towards a model mining legislation. This is a document which looks like a charter. We did not want to call it a charter because there are many charters out there. So we called it the first principles towards a model mining legislation. Two more problems were added, which did not necessarily come out from the findings, but which came out during the process of where we were soliciting for input from different stakeholders. These problems are beneficiation and artisanal mining. So these you also find are included in the first principles and are also included in the model mining law, but you may not necessarily find them in the case studies. So the activities also included in advisory group meetings. So in order to start the development of the model law, we made a group of experts, lawyers, and other experienced people from across the continent. Some of them, I think we have one in here. There were supposed to be two, the other couldn't make it. Sorry, two just arrived, they'll introduce themselves, they're still taking a shower. So we have that group of lawyers and other experts and people who have experience in development of model laws, and we made up that group. That group met 3 times throughout the project, and they came up with the first skeletal document, which I'm calling the zero draft here, of the model mining legislation. So in between the advisory group meetings, we had input sessions at different levels. So we had side events at the SADC People's Summit, at the Alternative Mining Indaba for the past 2 years, and at National Alternative Mining Indabas in different countries. In Mozambique, we were represented. In Zambia, we were represented. In Zimbabwe, we were represented as well, all last year. The African Commission on Human and People's Rights sessions, they hold these 2 times a year. And for the past 3 years, we have also been attending and soliciting input on this document at these sessions. The NGO forum, which also runs alongside the ACHPR, we have also presented the first principles and the draft model law as we were going, and we got input from several stakeholders. The Citizens Conference, which is at Africa Union level, and is a grouping of civil society organizations at African Union level. We've also made presentations of our documents and got input from that. Zinduka Festival, East Africa, Tanzania, Arusha. Patrick is nodding. These documents were also presented there, and input was also solicited. So I'm just trying to explain how we came up with the model mining legislation and how wide we sought input. Community meetings were also done in Ghana through ECASAD. Gladys is nodding. South Africa through Benchmarks and another organization which is not present yet, BLBA, and in Kenya as well. IANRA members have also been using other in-house events to solicit for input, and they've been sharing. Also with other IANRA meetings, for example, the AGM, we had sessions where people would sit, we are divided into groups, look at the different articles and share input. So these are the major activities. I would also like to mention that the research included policymakers and companies, and we are glad to have Ruashi Mining represented here. It's unfortunate other companies who were involved in the case study could not be present today. We have also started working with ICMM, which is an organization with mining companies. Many mining companies are members of ICMM. So they also could not be with us because of other events going on with them, but they really wanted to be with us. I would also like to mention that this model mining law is going to be a live document. We shall continue to work on it together. We shall continue to solicit input and continue to improve it so that it works for all of us, communities, policymakers, companies, and civil society organizations. The research is going to be published now, and the first principles, the policy guide, which came from the legal and policy analysis, the advocacy and gender mainstreaming guide, and the model law. These are the major documents that have come out of this project. But like Anne mentioned, we are going into a second phase where we are going to be using these documents, and it's a wider advocacy project. I would like to thank you so much for your time. And
is the community, the experience at the community level. And that's where we are going to start in terms of hearing what happened at the community level. I'm still leaving the option open, either Jean or Mwambi to start. Mwambi?
The presentation of the case studies is that we had done it at, we have two presenters for each country. For Kenya, we have 2 presenters, and for DRC, we have 2 presenters. The structure is basically to get the story from the case study community, then we can be able to input for the national. So just to start it off, we'll have David Saurey, who will take us through what was happening in Kerio Valley, where the case study was done, where what are the issues, like in highlights form, and apart from that, what has transpired over the time since we did the case study, how has he been participating in the whole project, and then finally, what do they have currently that they are pushing on, they are doing. So, David Saurey, can you take us through?
David, Kenya. This is where we have the fluorspar mining. Fluorspar mining in Kerio Valley began in 1970, and the government of the Republic of Kenya set aside 9,070 acres of our community to pave way for fluorspar mining. And the problem that we've experienced in this place is that when the government took our land to pave way for mining, using the Constitution of Kenya, the law, it failed to do so, to use the same law to compensate the people and to relocate the affected landowners. As we speak now, mining has been going on since 1970, and our community have been living in the mining area while mining operations have been going on. We've tried to struggle to get compensation as provided for by the law, but we have not been successful, and we've struggled all along. We've done a lot of work, we've written a lot of memoranda, a lot of petitions, and a lot of letters to government ministries and agencies and departments, but we have not been successful. Recently, IANRA and its members, Kendra and Coast Rights Forum, conducted, together with us as a community, conducted a case study on the model mining law. And our previous activities, together with that of the case study, have really energized the community. And the community had actually been divided down the middle, whereby we had people who were supporting the struggle for compensation, and the issues of environment, and others were not supporting it at all. They were just saying that the strugglers or the fighters are fighting to no avail. So when all these activities, including the case study, as I've said, they really re-energize the community. And we've done, as I've told you, we've done a lot of memoranda and petitions to the government. And actually recently, the Ministry of Mining responded through the minister, the former Minister for Mining, Honorable Najib Balala, and Honorable Najib Balala, as the CS Cabinet Secretary for Mining, formed a task force. And this task force was to investigate the issues around phosphor mining in Kerio Valley, come up with a report and recommendations, and present it back to the Cabinet Secretary for Mining. So, among the members of the task force were 5 members from the community, and I was one of them. And we did the investigations, we wrote a report with recommendations, and we presented it to the Cabinet Secretary for Mining, Honorable Najib Balala, on 16th of December last year. And what we are doing now is that we are waiting for the government to respond, and we are also, as a community, planning to do a follow-up of the report so that we see that the report is implemented, and so that hopefully at the end of it all, the community is compensated and relocated. Right now, as we speak, the company that is mining phosphor there is called the Kenya Phosphor Mining Company. It's called the Kenya Phosphor Company Limited. They want to close operations now as from 30th of April, and or they want to suspend operations. What they are saying is that they are citing global prices of minerals as having fallen, so therefore they are not able to sustain their operations, and so they want to suspend operations for a while, or we don't know. And so far the community is hopeful that the government will eventually solve the problem once and for all, and we as a community we've been suffered for that long. We've endured a lot of problems, and it has always been our prayer that things will be solved once and for all. We've compared our problem with that of a story in the Bible, where we have the story of the rich man and Lazarus. Lazarus here explains the poor man. And the rich man eats from his table, and the crumbs from his table are falling onto the ground. And then Lazarus is picking the crumbs from the rich man's table. And if nothing falls from the rich man's table, then Lazarus and his family will not get food for the family. And they will also not get anything to take their children to school, or grow their children, or to house their children. And in this case, the rich man here represents the miner, or the mining company. And the Lazarus here, to me, represents the community. The community servers, they see the investor, the miner, the mining company doing business and enjoying all that, but the community does not enjoy anything at all. And this is a problem that we affecting us in Kerio Valley and other places in Kenya, and I think also other places in Africa and the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
It's not the first time he's sharing the story. And, I think a number of us have heard that story. It's also compiled in the case study report. But he was highlighting some of the things that were coming out, and I think he has also succeeded in telling you a little bit of what they did, in the sense of they approached the cabinet secretary, who is the minister actually, and they were able to get a meeting or an appointment with him, And also they approached the county government, that is the Elgeyo Marakwet county government, that is the governor, and they also expressed their issues. He has also said that they presented their issues in various platforms, like, if I can remember very well, is the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation process. There was another commission which was doing on land. What was that?
There was a commission that was formed around 2003, if I'm not wrong, which was, I think, let us call it was called the Commission.
Yeah, actually that's sort of over time. So during the project is that when we were doing the case study, that also just extract information and bring back a report. But it was more of asking what are the issues and how do we think we can solve the issues, what can we do even without the report. So immediately the community picked it up with the various power holders, that is the MCLs, that is member of county assembly, and also the cabinet secretary. And then the task force was formed. Now they are waiting for the report to be implemented and the recommendations. So as we are talking, they are trying to seek an appointment with the cabinet secretary, the new one, that is the minister, so that they can be able to follow the issue, to see how the recommendations can be implemented. That was the first part of the project at the national level. Apart from that, is that with the project also we are able to share this information in various platforms. Like I think in the laws which are being formulated in Kenya since the constitution in 2010, the reviews and all that, the case study was very instrumental in the sense of we could contribute into the mining bill, the community land bill that we have been working together with Shedrack and other colleagues from that perspective. Apart from that one, we have also shared it in other platforms, a relationship with them, and we can easily communicate it to each other. Unfortunately, we invited them for this meeting, but due to the closing and all that, I think they are winding up the project. We also able to share with the other various government departments, including the Ministry of Mining, and also at the county level, as the governments at the county level, sharing with them what are the issues and all that. And actually they picked interest in coming to this meeting. I think during the course of the day we'll have representatives from the various county governments so that they can also come and hear the stories from the other people or witness the launching of the document. Apart from that, I must mention that we were also able to replicate the same thing in another community. That is the community we're engaging in, which is part of the Kendra member. This is from the Mui Basin, where the proposed coal mining is going to be happening. And the community there is organized in such a way that they have a liaison committee which talks between the government and the people and all that, and the issues were being raised. And using the various documents we have and the sharing platforms, the people have started confronting the power holders, including the county assembly. So they are right now talking about revising the guidelines for this liaison committee, and actually they're in that conversation. Apart from that one, they're also able to question some of their MPs. And we can say that, like last week, the MPs had to see the president so that the bill can be moved. I'm being informed that last week a number of bills were passed, that is on Friday. That's the community land bill, the mining bill. So they are waiting for some of them will be taken to the Senate because they were passed by the National Assembly. Now they will be going to the Senate, like the community land bill. But some of them now will just go directly to the president for assenting. And our constitution is very clear that there's a duration. If he doesn't sign, it becomes law on its own. From that perspective is that we have also been able to take this conversation to the regional level, that is the East African level. And I think my colleague Tafi had mentioned that we have taken the conversation to the East African level, and it's one of the least engaged intergovernmental body, and like SADC, ECOWAS, and all that. Maybe because it's still in formative stage, there's a lot of discussions and all that. But people are not organized around natural resource, and we need to take that conversation to that stage so that we can start even having our regional meetings or AMIs and all that. So I'll be calling upon my colleagues from East Africa that can we think of a way that we can widen this network and start working at the East African region also. Thank you very much.
On the issue of the environment, we've experienced a lot of environmental problems. One of the major problems that we had in Kerio Valley is the discharge of raw factory effluents into Kerio River. That is a major river that is supplying water to Elgeyo Marakwet County, Baringo County, West Pokot County, and Turkana County in northern Kenya. And this river is key, but the factory was discharging factory effluents into the river. So we really did a lot of work, and eventually they said that they are going to do recycling. But the recycling issue has not really worked well, but to a large extent, it has stopped the discharge of factory effluents into the river. And there were other issues of environmental issues, including issues of dust pollution and land pollution. Land pollution is here, I mean that they were also discharging the factory effluents onto land. And a lot of trees died and vegetation died because of that land pollution. And so the mitigation here was to do recycling of the waste water so that they take it back to the factory, and also to reinforce their tailing dams. And this is what they also did. And the issue of winding up, the issue here is not really winding up, but suspension of operations. They have said that they want to suspend operations for a while, and then they will come back to resume mining. And on the issue of women participation, women have really been participating. Some do participate openly, some of course participate behind the scenes, so that at the end of it all, the men are the ones who will speak out on behalf of the ladies. The women here have suffered also in terms of you know they are the tillers of land, and they are the producers of food. They are the people also who go to fetch firewood. They were denied to fetch firewood. They were denied to till their land because the land is already allocated to the company to mine. So women have also been participating in a big way. And on the issue of parliamentarians, the parliamentarians have not been very supportive, especially from the local area. And if for example they were supportive, they would have even asked questions in Parliament. And if a member of Parliament asks a question in Parliament, the answers are normally found very quickly for a question that has been asked in Parliament. So no MP has asked a question in Parliament about the philosophy issue, except recently. We have a women representative, that is a member of Parliament who is a woman representing the entire county. she managed to ask a question in Parliament, and we think might have been what made the minister to go to Kerio Valley, and out of it, a task force was formed. So one member of Parliament recently asked a question about the issues around philosophy. On community organization, women, youth, and the men. Here, as a community, we started we formed actually a committee. Initially, we formed a committee where we had men, and women, and the youth represented in this committee. The work of this committee was to work towards compensation and also resettlement, and also to address the issues of environmental pollution and degradation. So we involved all these people in the committee. Eventually, we formed a group. We registered a group. We are calling it Kimaresute Prosper Community Trust. The work of this is to do the same, to advance the issues of the community and to fight for the rights of the community. And on the legal framework, we have a mining law in Kenya, and during the discussions on the task force that was looking at the issues in Prosper, the people from the Ministry of Mining were talking about a legal framework providing for the closure of a mining operation in any part of this country. So I think the legal framework is there, and I think also, I've not read this current mining law, but maybe Mommy can tell us about that. Again, on the issue of the impact of the suspension of operations is going to be huge. In fact, right now, as we speak, some people who are doing business with the company, the transporters, those people working for the company, they think that the suspension of operations of the Kenya Prosper Company Limited is as a result of our work that we have been doing. So they tend to see us as people who have spoiled for them and all that. And again, so they are saying they are going to lose jobs, they are going to lose business. Some people who are also doing other businesses, like those people who have established shops, vegetable vendors, and all that are supported by the activities of the mining activity, are also seeing that they are going to lose their business opportunities. And so the impact is going to be huge. And last but not least, on the issue of the CSR, the mining company there, the Kenya Prosper Mining Company Limited, has provided some CSR. They built a hospital, though it is private. The community have to pay for the services. They have an ambulance, which we also pay for the services. They have a school, a primary school, which is also private. We have to pay so that our children go to that school. And other activities of CSR are not clear. Though recently when we went to see the Cabinet Secretary for Mining, that's the minister, we said that this company is generating 4 billion Kenya shillings per annum. But they denied that, and they said that they are getting only 2.2 billion Kenya shillings per annum. And then they went further to say that they are providing CSR to the tune of Kenya shillings 55 million Kenya shillings per annum to the community. And we have not seen what that 56 million Kenya shillings is doing to the community. So that is a challenge. Thank you very much.
Maybe I'll just add some little bit of it. I'll start with the winding up of the company and the closing the operation. and what does it mean to, first of all, compensation. Let me clarify that it's not the work of the company to do the compensation. It's the work of the government of Kenya to do the compensation. So the community has to pick up that issue with the government. And I think they are very clear with that. And it's one of the recommendations in the task force. Apart from that, the environmental pollution and all that, Kenya is regulated by the National Environmental Management Authority. And some of us are aware that the issues is not actually during the mining, but the biggest issue is after the mining. And the issues of reclamation and returning the place to whatever it is. Let me warn you also that this might be a strategy, the issues of suspending, because it happened in 1997 when Kenya Philosopher Company was all of a sudden privatized, and the manner at which it was privatized raised a lot of questions in terms of the company was sold at a price of a giveaway price, despite that it was a government property. But they were also managed to renew the contract with the county government. By then it was the county council of Margaret. And they renewed it for 21 years, which is ending next year but 2018. So some of us are on the lookout to see if they are going to renew their lease. What does it mean? And even our constitution is clear on it that all concessions will have to be debated in parliament, and the parliament has to be involved. But I've just said that we have a new mining bill here, mining law. It's waiting for the president to send to it. So some of these issues have been tackled in the law, because as per now we were operating with a very old law which was formed in 1940s with a lot of patches and amendments here and there. It's like an old trouser full of patches. So anyway, apart from that, the organization, I think he has tried to respond to Mumo's question in terms of how the community is organized. Of course, they are organized as community. Kimores and Tech Philosopher Community Trust, I hate that word, philosopher in it, but it's their choice. But they are members of the now national network, that is the IANRA, and through them there's a lot of helping each other, as in terms of if they want to reach at the national level, in terms of trainings and all that. And we have a number of partnerships that we are doing even currently. Apart from that, some of the members of the network also, that is the KENRA, are also supporting them. Like he mentioned the Coast Rights Forum, which is actually the partner in the model mining legislation. Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to respond to was the issue of how the community is organized in terms of representing the various groups. And I must say that they are doing quite a good job in the sense of trying to have every person represented in that community trust. I remember even when they were forming the task force, they had to make sure that it's gender sensitive. So there are women represented there. Apart from that, Coast Rights Forum has also been supporting them by having sessions specifically with women, and they will express their issues, or even youth, specifically with the youths, that they can present their issues in terms of what really is going to, how they need the issues to be solved and all that. So that representation actually has been very key, because that is one of the outputs of the project. I want to respond to what my colleague, I keep on forgetting your name, yeah? Jose, you're raising the issues of corporate social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, CSR. Nowadays they call it CSI, and that is what most companies are going to. Yes, when we talk of CSI, or the CSR, the old school, I will warn that most companies in Kenya, they are coming up to let me say, to compete with the civil society in the name of CSI. They are forming foundations everywhere, and people are clapping to it. So, thank you for raising it, but I would say that from the people who are coming from the civil society, be on the watch out on this. We have also lost a number of our colleagues who have gone to the CSI perspective. And that's another debate on its own. Yeah? Thank you very much.